So, decided to show you what we did yesterday. Here is the coldest spot in our apartment. It's plus 17 degrees and the ideal temperature for fermenting the beer is 15 to 22, and this is, what do you call it, now on its way. I haven't seen any serious bubbles yet, so we're kind of waiting for the fermentation to really kick off, but it's early days. It's been under 24 hours since it started the process. And now I'll show you what we did. First of all, the equipment down here. This is the Brew Monk, which has all the different settings for temperature, power. We noticed that brewing it or using it with 2,500 watts, it was boiling too rapidly. We had a rolling boil with 1,800 watts, and we were thinking going down to 1,700. I think it would have worked. But the temperature gauges on that, they're excellent. You see exactly where you're going. So what was the process? It was first, in this box, heat up 12 litres of water up to 66.7 degrees in this, and the dial tells you how warm it is or not. And then while that was warming up, we used this grinder, 5 kilos of barley, and ground it up. When the water was reached 66.7 degrees, I think it was, this idiotic number came from, it was converted from US units to metric units, so it had these weird numbers that it produced. So we mixed the grain into the warm water. It was standing here where the drill is standing now, so that we could pour it out easily into the fermentation bucket that we saw in the start of the video. And then, mixed it up well so that all the grain was wet, and then started mashing. I don't know what it's called in English, but basically mascamine, yeah. And that took about 60 minutes, where it was just circulating the warm water through the grain. And after that we did something called sparging. So you lift up the grain from the liquid, and we put 12 litres again, 12 litres of hot water through the grain, or the water was, I think, 77 degrees this time, but beneath 80 degrees, and that apparently releases the right amount of sugar out of the grains. And after the sparging, we put it to boil in this thing, and it boiled for, what was it, 75 minutes or so. And then every 30 minutes we added hops, and this that we used, it was named Citra. We actually tried it with pate, or I think Luke tried it also, and chop a single pellet in his mouth. Ooh, it's a violent taste. What do you call it? After it boiled for 75 minutes, adding the hops in every 30 minutes or so, then we poured it all into the fermentation tank, added the yeast, closed it up, and carried it into the coldest place in the apartment, which you saw at 70 degrees. It's going to spend there 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll get a beer. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking off the labels from beer bottles, and as you can see, some of the labels are already coming loose. So yeah, getting ready for bottling. And one of the things that I did, my printer is messed up. As you can see, there's a blue stripe on the printout, so that needs to be fixed. But what we're calling it is, it's our brew number 1 was Invalid IPA, because both me and my brother, we were a bit worse for wear. Me due to my illness, and him due to his horrendous football accident that, well, not horrendous, but it chopped off, or chopped his arm. No, chopped is the wrong word. Broke his arm, and now he has a metal plate in there to fix it. Oh yeah, this I forgot to mention. When it has boiled for the 75 minutes, you put cold tap water through this, and you lower the temperature down to 20, or we lowered the temperature down to 20 degrees. And when it was at 20 degrees, we added the yeast and sealed the thing and carried it into that little room over there. And that's about the story. And the only problem was that my wife disliked the smell of us cooking the beer immensely. She didn't like it at all. But I trust that when she gets to taste one of these, then she'll be all is forgiven. So, one of the things that happened yesterday was that I think this is Pat's thing. I got this. It's a GoPro. It's slightly broken. It's missing a door there, and it's missing the lens cover. So maybe you could fix it somehow. But the main thing is that, what do you call it? I'm going to try this out, and then I think I've got the housing mount here, and with this you could attach it to a variety of different things. But let's see if I get this to work. So there's my 7D, and there's my 6D. No, 70D and 70D and 6D, and then finally this GoPro, which I don't know what it's going to be like, but I'm going to give it a go. So I used the GoPro after I recorded the last bit. I went out and took the dog to the raw part, and I tested it, and I'm well pleased with it. It works quite well. No questions about that. There is, however, the fact the lens cover is missing in this one of the doors. But basically, other than that, the device looks alright. Maybe a bit tattered, but what do you expect from an action camera? The touch screen at the back works alright, or the symbols work. The battery life, I loaded it. If you load it with one of these spare, charging banks, it's too slow. It doesn't load that at all. I had to hook it up directly to an actual charger, and then it worked. But anyway, next week is going to be very interesting, because then we'll see whether there's still work for me to do at the current job, because the project that I was in have been for 3 years, which is enormous. To start with, that ended. There's no work there, so I need to find new employment. And I'm hoping that the current customer will, because they have more than one documenting project, But I was terrified last week, even, yeah, and I noticed that praying in the morning with Terhi, it helps. I felt better, but then you get this feeling that what am I going to do? But I trust God will see my family through in the best manner. That I'm praying that it will bear good fruit in our lives. But what do I say? I'm glad that the stress level that the customer or that was in this project, it is diminished, and it's easier to breathe. Now the terror of something going wrong in the project, it has switched to what do you call it? Well, how am I going to provide? But yeah, that's a tough one. But I trust that God has taken us this far. He'll take us forward. And on that note, Jesus Christ is King.